I always trusted my instincts until the day I found an identical necklace in my husband's gym bag. It was a delicate gold pendant with a tiny emerald exactly like the one he'd given me for our first anniversary. I'd worn mine every day for 3 years. It wasn't expensive, but it was unique, custom made by a small jeweler who had since closed their shop. At least that's what he told me. I found the duplicate while looking for a missing sock, nestled in a side pocket I'd never noticed before. My first thought was sweet, perhaps he'd bought a replacement in case I lost mine. But something felt off. The jewelry box was still sealed with a small gift tag that read, "To celebrate another year." Our anniversary was still 2 months away when I casually mentioned finding the necklace that evening. David froze for just a moment before smiling. "I wanted it to be a surprise," he said, kissing my forehead. "I know how much you love the first one." I nodded and let it go, but the unease lingered. I began noticing other things, late nights at work that hadn't happened before, text messages he'd quickly put away when I entered the room, and weekend client meetings that seemed to multiply. My friend Kate suggested I was being paranoid. "He literally bought you jewelry," she said. "That's not exactly cheating behavior," but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. 3 weeks later, I found myself sitting in my car outside the address I'd seen in his GPS history. It was an upscale apartment building downtown, nowhere near his office or any client sites I knew about. I waited, telling myself I'd leave in 5 minutes, that this was ridiculous. Then I saw him walk out of the building, his arm around a woman with long dark hair. My heart stopped when I saw her reach up to touch her neck, where an emerald pendant identical to mine caught the afternoon light. I followed them to a nearby Questmania, watching through the window as they laughed and talked. Their body language was intimate, familiar. When he reached across to wipe something from her cheek, I felt physically ill. I drove home in a daze and packed a bag. When David came home that night, I was sitting at the kitchen table with both our suitcases by the door. "Who is she?" I asked simply, his face crumpled. He sat down heavily. "Rebecca," he said quietly. "How long? 2 years. His voice was barely audible. I laughed bitterly. "So practically our entire marriage." "It's not like that," he said, rubbing his face. "Rebecca is, she's my wife." I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "I am your wife. You both are." He looked up, his eyes red. "Rebecca and I have been married for 5 years. I met you during a rough patch. I never meant for it to become this." The room seemed to tilt. "You are saying I have 2 wives, 2 lives. Neither of you knew about the other." I thought about the identical necklaces, the carefully structured schedule, the way he never wanted me to pick him up from the airport. "Does she know now?" I asked. He shook his head. "No one was ever supposed to find out." I reached for my phone. "What's her number, Claire?" "Please, her number, David." Sometimes trusting your gut means accepting the truth, even when it's more twisted than you could have imagined.